With so many gear sets in the Elder Scrolls Online, where do you start if you're a magic damage dealer? I'm going to tell you. Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com, and this is going to be a beginner's guide for magic DPS gear, step 1 all the way to endgame. Where you start, overland, crafted, trials, mythics. How do you break it down? Where's the path to progress? Let me tell you. What I'm going to do is go over some common 5 pieces first, then monster helms, which are 2-piece, helm and shoulder, along with mythics and even weapons, and tell you how to put this all together so that way you know step 1, 2, and 3. How do you build your character to endgame? So we're going to go and talk about overland first, since that's the easiest. So the number 1 most impactful and best thing to get if I were you is Mother's Sorrow. It's good right now, it's going to be good in the future, and you can get this into Sean. What it does is it's going to give you a lot of crit and a little bit of max magic. If you ever played an MMO, you know crit is a super valuable stat. So in Elder Scrolls Online, getting to right around 60% critical, spell critical specifically, is very, very good for damage dealers. So Mother's Sorrow is a main 5-piece and highly recommend it. As a new player, or even as an endgame player, it still works. If you're a new player watching this video, you're probably not doing trials, and you probably don't have a gazillion champion points like I do, or have a really fundamental way of knowing how to sustain yourself. Therefore, I recommend the second 5-piece, Withered Hand. This comes from Alakir Desert, and what it's going to do is when you kill an enemy, you're going to resource sustain magic and health. It does have a cooldown of 3 seconds. However, you're going to notice a massive amount of sustain. So you're going to pair a 5-piece like Mother's Sorrow, which has a lot of damage potential, with this because it's going to help you survive and sustain and keep you in the fight. Consider this a training wheel set. So if you don't need this on, you can always go with something else. So we're going to do Spinner's Garment is the next 5-piece that you could swap in for Withered Hand if you don't struggle with sustain. This is a really easy set to get a hold of in Malleable Tor. The 5-piece becomes less and less effective the more champion points and the more coordinated groups you have. But you have an option. Mother's Sorrow is your base, and then either Spinners if you have good resource sustain, or Withered Hand if you struggle with that. Now we're going to get to the weapons, and the trainee weapons, ironically, are one of the best. These are found throughout the starter zone, Bleak Rock Isles, Carnarthy's Roost, the basic areas, and it comes in the training trait, which is obviously not good. But if you can trait change it to Sharpen, Precise, Nirnhone, something like that, it's a fantastic 2-piece. Because the 2-piece is going to give you max health and max magic. 2 things you really need if you're starting out. So you're going to want to farm this and trait change. You can also buy this off the traders as well. Let's say you don't want to mess with that. You can also go with Willpower. Willpower can be obtained through Imperial City. You can buy it from the traders, and you get a ton of it just from doing normal dungeon or veteran dungeon finders. So the Willpower is going to give you max magic in a 2-piece. This is a very, very simple setup. Mother's Sorrows, Withered Hand, and either Willpower or Trainee. Now you have 2 5-pieces and a nice staff. You're going to have a lot of boosted stats. I use this to complete Veteran Maelstrom Arena with 0 champion points on a Magic Nightblade. It actually works. Now, let's say you start getting into the game, you get some traits research, you're ready to start crafting up. One really common one that folks use is Julianos. This is crafted in Hrothgar. It's going to give you some spell crit, max magic, and 300 spell damage. Mechanical Acuity is another craftable set. 6 traits, and this is Clockwork City you can find just outside of the city. What it's going to do is give you a small burst window. This is fantastic in arenas like Batishram or VMA if you're farming that as well. A really strong craftable 5-piece. So you got either craftable sets, you got overlands, you got some weapon. Now, if I were you, I'd start working on dungeons. There's some really fantastic gear sets in dungeons, and one that we've been using for quite a while and we'll still probably use is Medusa's. This pairs very well with Mother's Sorrow. What it's going to do is give you a lot of spell critical, and then on the 5-piece, gain minor force at all times, increasing your crit damage by 10%. A very common setup is jewelry with the weapon of Medusa, along with the 5-piece Mother's Sorrow on the body with a monster helm. Very, very good setup. This comes from Ark's Corinium dungeon. I can solo the veteran hard mode myself. You'll find a lot of people still farming this, so I would recommend doing the normal over and over and over. Another option is burning Spellweave. Been using it for years, still really works, and it's City of Ash. This is going to, when you deal flame damage, it's going to increase your spell damage by 461 for 8 seconds with a 12-second cooldown. So another thing that you can front bar if you like this, really handy for magic Dragonites using a lot of flame effects. You have a couple options. I would prioritize Medusas and Ark's Corinium first, or Scathing Mage and Burning Spellweave. Combine it with Mother's Sorrow. Now what you're going to look for is a Monster Helm. A Monster Helm that I don't really use much because I don't have a problem with survivability, but some folks might, is Iceheart. This comes from Dire Frost Keep, and you can get the shoulder from the vendor that sells the chest using Undaunted Keys. This is going to give you spell crit as a one piece, and it's going to give you a shield 20% chance when you deal critical damage that's going to help you survive. So if you struggle with bar swaps, taking pressure, you don't have a lot of champion points, you don't know the mechanics, consider Iceheart your friend. Again, training wheels, so take this off for something more damage producing later. What's more damage producing? Well, Grothar is a good place to start. That's in Vaults of Madness. Veteran, you're going to have to do to get the helm. And what the strength of this is massive AoE. So it feels very strong on a melee Magplar, something that's up in the fight as a magic build. It's going to be very strong. If you're clear in the back, like my magic Sorky Porky here, not going to be as strong, but Vaults of Madness is where this at, making it very easy to obtain. Another set here is Valken Scoria from City of Ash 2, and this is going to give Spell Pen as a one piece, and has a pretty low chance when you do damage over time to proc flame damage and another explosion AoE around there, and it scales off weapon and spell damage. Not typically meta used right now, but in a pinch, if you don't have access to anything else, this will work a little bit better for range characters. It's going to do good single target and good AoE. What's going to do a lot of damage and can be tough to get a hold of is Scalecoller's Peak Zons. So when you do damage nearby enemy with a light or heavy attack, you have a chance, put a beam on them, the beam absolutely melts. This is fantastic single target, big time burst. It's good for dungeons, it's good for trials, it's good for arenas. The only issue is it comes in Scalecoller's Peak, and not a lot of people can beat the veteran mode. So consider this the highest tier monster helm for damage, and something you're going to aim and aspire to get to. So stage 1, you're going to get a bunch of overland sets. So Mother Sorrowed, Wither Hand, maybe Training Your Willpower. That's going to get you by, allow you to complete these dungeons. And your next priority is to go Ark's Corinium, get Medusas, start working on the monster helms. If you can get Zons, great. And another thing to work on is Veteran Maelstrom Arena. Something very strong is this specific staff, Perfected Crushing Wall. Your light and heavy attacks deal an additional 1,300 damage to your enemies with Wall of Elements. Light attacking in between your abilities produces some of the highest damage in endgame. So this right here, keeping unstable wall on your back bar up at all times, will skyrocket your DPS and is another priority to get. If you can't beat Veteran, don't worry about it. Just do the normal if you can. Getting the Inferno or a Lightning, prioritize Inferno, is a big priority because that added effect of increasing your light and heavy attacks will make a big difference in your damage. That's enough to start getting into really decent trials groups, whether it's normal or veteran. You have what it takes to beat veteran trials. No, not the super hard, sweaty hard modes, but the average veteran trial, that magic DPS gear can work. So now you got access to trials. What should you go after? Well, one really fantastic sustain set is False God. So this is going to reduce your magic ability. When something dies, when a mob dies that you kill, you're going to gain magic and major expedition. So this is going to be obtained in Sunspire. It's fantastic when you're playing solo or in an uncoordinated group, or you're going to do dungeons by yourself and just try to challenge. This thing all around is great sustain, mobility, and can really help you out doing those arenas if that's your goal. Cloud Rest has a fantastic set, and that's Sororia's. Dealing damage with a single target ability is basically going to put something at your feet, going to amplify your spell damage by a lot. The strength of this set is if you're parsing, if you have a very long stationary fight, it will outperform almost anything. Downside is it's not very mobile, but for certain applications, this thing is really good, and you're going to try to get it in Cloud Rest, even get the normal version if you have to. It's really worth obtaining. And you got the latest coming from Rock Grove, the new trial in Blackwood. Increase your damage done to non-player enemies up by 15% based on your missing magic. So consider this really top tier. You have to spec your build out for it, but you got something for False Gods for solo, this here for group, and or Sororias for group as well. That's an option. Now you've been playing ESO a while, you got a really good set, you're doing trials. What's the next step? Mythics. That's the last top tier thing that you need to prioritize and focus on. You have the option of dropping the monster helm and using the mythic. They're very strong. You have the Pale Order. Essentially, this is ideal for solo play because it's going to heal you based on the value damage done. The more damage you do, the more healing you do. This thing is a hard carry for solo arenas for people that struggle with VMA, Vatishram Hollows, or you're doing uncoordinated groups. And also, I run this when I'm doing 3 DPS and a tank going for speed, veteran, hard mode trifecta runs. Fantastic. It is kind of a pain to get a hold of. Speaking of pain to get a hold of, Death Dealer's Fate from Blackwood. This is going to give you a lot of max stats. So on classes like my Sork, my Magic Nightblade, my Magic Templar, I don't need a lot of healing. Pale Order feels like overkill. So what I do is I slot in Death Dealer's Fate. Gives me health, magic, and stamina when I've been in combat for a while. That's useful because I can dodge, I can survive, I can switch my food out to have more sustain. Now, if you're looking at top tier DPS, then you're going to go with Harpoon's Waiting Kilt. This is going to provide an extreme amount of damage. It's not applicable for every situation because you might be taking direct damage. But if you're doing trials, you're not taking damage, you're in a coordinated group with folks, tanks and healers, and you're keeping the pressure off you, this will ramp up your DPS skyrocket level. So a setup that I use is typically Medusas, False Gods, and if I'm playing solo, usually Death Dealer's Fate. If I'm playing in a group, I'll swap out False Gods for another trial set, pick your poison, along with Harpooner's Kilt. That's enough DPS to get you by very, very far in Elder Scrolls Online. So I'm going to recap this. Stage 1, if I were you, I'd go to Deshaun, get Mother Sorrow. Then I'd go to Alakir, I'd get Withered Hand. I'd either get Trainee or Willpower off the trader, make sure it's sharpened or precise trait. Next, I'd start working on dungeons. I'd work on Ark's Corinium, priority number 1, to get a 5-piece Medusa. I'd pair that with my Mother Sorrow set, and I'd start aiming for Zons. Ice Heart to start if you need survivability in Dire Frost. Zons and Scalecaller peak if you need a lot of DPS. Then you have 5 Mother Sorrow, 5 Medusas, and 2 Zons. You're ready to burn down the house in trials. Now I start working towards those mythics in trials. I start getting False Gods along with Pale Order if you struggle with survivability, or Death Dealer's Fate if you like the well-balanced and you don't struggle with survivability. You want to work towards those trials, getting Sororias, getting Harpooner's Kilt, and that will set you up for success later on. Take it slow. Start with the basics, working towards your progression, and it will be a lot easier because Elder Scrolls Online doesn't tell you this, and you can look at all the guides in the world, but it's pretty hard with a million choices out there. So I hope you got something out of this video. It's taken me a long time to figure out this route myself, but I'm telling you, each stage does work, and I've proved it on my live stream on Twitch TV/Deltiasgaming. Come watch me. We do tons of runs, beginner friendly. Thanks for watching.